I really don't want to be in here at 6:05 and having to start off the show with this. I really don't. But I have no choice. It is good to be here on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. And I've been thinking about this for the last 12 to 18 hours since we found out that the shooter down in Dallas was motivated by anti-ICE propaganda and rhetoric. And I couldn't help but think, here we go again. And I've tried to figure out a way to be really nuanced and responsible and think about this in a way that, frankly, Charlie Kirk would in the wake of his assassination. But I can't help but come back to the obvious conclusion here that in the last 3-4 weeks in particular, we have had 3 heinous acts of violence. The Minneapolis school, motivated by anti-Catholic propaganda. We have Charlie Kirk, obviously a far-left lunatic, motivated once again by this idea that Charlie Kirk was a fascist. The bullet read, "Hey, fascist, catch." And now we have 3 people killed, including the shooter, in this attack on ICE yesterday in Dallas, where, once again, you've got people writing on their ammunition, in this case saying anti-ICE. There is a common thread right now to what is going on. And it's undeniable that it's coming from one side of the political aisle. This isn't to say that there have not been politically motivated attacks by people who might vote the same way as I do and potentially vote the same way as you do. I'm not saying that it's never happened. I'm not saying in a country of 330 million people, there are not wackos across the board. There are. But this is not a both sides issue right now. At this point in time in American history, it is not a both sides issue. Imagine if we were sitting here and in the last 2 weeks, you had somebody shoot and kill one of the most prominent liberal commentators in the country. And then 2 weeks later, somebody from a rooftop guns down people walking into a Planned Parenthood. What do you think the conversation would be in this country right now? And I would argue fairly so. What do you think people would be saying right now in America? It would be a fair conversation to have. Okay, well, that's what's going on, except it's happening in reverse. And I'm not sitting here portraying or painting everybody that may vote differently from me and everybody that may vote differently from you as some kind of domestic terrorist. That's not what I'm saying here. But I am saying you got to look in the mirror. Don't all sides this thing right now. And that's what happened, unfortunately, yesterday in the wake of this tragedy in Dallas from none other than Chuck Schumer.
This is just terrible. Everybody, right, left, center, I don't care what your politics are, has to speak out strongly against it. But look, I think, and I don't know what's happened here, and I don't know about the guns, but we need better laws on guns.
So we all got to speak out against it. All right, so do it. No, let me talk about guns. Enough about speaking out against that. Let's get to the guns, could you please? Yeah, let's go to the guns. We don't have any information on this guy and his gun. We know that in the Charlie Kirk situation, it was a family weapon. How you legislating that there, Chucky boy? And you go back a few weeks prior to that, the kid in Minneapolis, well, there are red flag laws there. He was a nut job, and nobody stopped that. What are you going to do? The guy had no track record. So Chuck Schumer, even when he has an opportunity to say, we all have to speak out, right, left, in the middle. Okay, so say something. So speak out. So call out your own side. Instead, we do this all sides thing, and then he doesn't really say anything, and he immediately pivots to guns. Immediately. He didn't say, I've got to look at my rhetoric. I've got to talk to my people in the Senate. I've got to talk to my party, and we've got to figure out how to tone it down from our side. Let us be leaders. And I know some of you are sitting there right now and you're boiling. And you're saying, but Trump, but Trump, but Trump. I will not sit here and tell you that Donald Trump has the greatest rhetoric known to mankind. Okay? But that doesn't matter right now. If you're going to sit here and tell me that these people on the other side are motivated because Trump has, yes, sometimes mean Truth Social posts, get over yourselves. Look in the mirror. That's what needs to happen right now. Everybody that is sitting there saying it's guns this or all sides that has to look in the mirror. Look at what is going on in this country over the last 4 weeks now. And that's where the conversation, if we're being honest, needs to be had. It doesn't mean that one side is perfect. That's not what this is about. But there is a trend here, and the trend is undeniable. And at this point, if you're going to deny that trend, you're denying truth. You're denying the reality that America's living through right now. That's what you're doing. And maybe it makes you feel better. Maybe you can go on there and get a nice cable news hit somewhere or something along those lines. Maybe that's what you want to do. But you know what? It's not based in reality. And you heard yesterday J.D. Vance, the vice president, speaking about this. He was down in North Carolina, but of course, the news of the day was out of Dallas. And here's what the VP had to say.
Law enforcement. Because here's what happened. Because here's what happens when Democrats like Gavin Newsom did say that these people are part of an authoritarian government. When the left-wing media lies about what they're doing, when they lie about who they're arresting, when they lie about the actual job of law enforcement, what they're doing is encouraging crazy people to go and commit violence. You don't have to agree with my immigration policies. You don't have to agree with Donald Trump's immigration policies. But if your political rhetoric encourages violence against our law enforcement, you can go straight to hell and you have no place in the political conversation of the United States of America.
JD's got to be a little careful, though. He's getting a little too Ted Cruz-y on me there. But his point is outstanding. He's absolutely spot on, okay? He nails it. You don't have to like my immigration policy or Donald Trump's immigration policy. He makes that clear. You can disagree with our immigration policy. You can't call ICE agents the Gestapo, the SS, fascists. You can't do that. Disagree. Make the case against it. But that is not what has been going on here by any stretch of the imagination. Instead, it's this extreme language and approach. And it's those things that are being mainstreamed that crazy people are taking and acting on. And that's got to stop. 913-408-7957. On the text line, Pete, are you trying to tell me that Chuck Schumer was attempting to score political points over a murder?
Talk about a bombshell.
I know. Color me shocked. I mean, it's got to stop. And you know what? When you have a run like this of violence that is being committed by extremists on one side, don't both sides it right now. Call it out. Call it what it is. And let's try, if we have leadership in our political class, which I'm not convinced that we do, let's try to bring down the temperature. And just like in sports, starts with your own team. And right now, based on the recent news cycle, it is one team that needs to look in the mirror. Coming up on KCMO Talk Radio, there is some big news that I think is about to pop off on one side of our state line. We'll tell you what that is and the drama that will ensue on it next on KCMO. Well, you thought the redistricting battle in Missouri had some juice to it. Oh, just wait. Just wait to see what's coming on the Kansas side, where you have a Democrat governor and a prominent Kansas City area Democrat who is not going to be happy. So this is coming now. Missouri has gone ahead with redistricting. Emmanuel Cleaver is all but guaranteed to lose his seat as they made the 5th congressional district a much more conservative and Republican district. Well, now on the Kansas side, where there are 4 congressional House seats, they are going to move ahead and try to squeeze out Sharice Davids in the 3rd district. And that is likely going to mean splitting up Johnson County. So suddenly, we could be sitting here in the Kansas City area. And it used to be, even when I started here, like 7-8 years ago now, there were only really 2, maybe 3 congressional districts that we cared about. There was Sam Graves up to the north. There was Emmanuel Cleaver in the Kansas City area. And then on the other side of state line, you look at mostly Wyandotte and Johnson County, and you had Kevin Yoder and then Sharice Davids. And now you kind of have Sharice Davids and a little bit of Derek Schmidt because they did redistrict a few years ago. And what they did is they took Sharice Davids and they split up Wyandotte County and they put some of that in the Derek Schmidt's district. So there are many of you listening right now who have Congressman Derek Schmidt and obviously a lot of you who have Sharice Davids. All of Johnson County still has Sharice Davids and going on south from there, Miami and Franklin counties as well. But it looks like they are going to go full steam ahead with a special session coming up here in just a few weeks in Kansas to try to draw a new map that then squeezes out Sharice Davids. And from what I'm hearing, this is, yes, in part in conjunction with the White House. Let's not forget, there are people in leadership who are running to be the next governor of Kansas. Ty Masterson, who is the Senate president, who will be on the show at 9 o'clock this morning, wants to be the next governor. You think this might be a good feather in his cap, huh? In a Republican primary? The guy who squeezed out Sharice Davids, you think that President Trump might like that as he looks to maybe get involved in this race? Just saying. You have other people that are in elected office. Scott Schwab, he's the Secretary of State. You have, of course, Dr. Jeff Collier, who has been the governor of Kansas before and is trying to be it again. And then you've got some outsiders as well. You've got Sarnecki in the mix and a few others. But this is obviously something that going into an election year in a wide open governor's race, people have a lot of motivation to do. Now, is this gerrymandering? Yeah, it is. I'm not going to tell you it's anything but that. Kansas would go from having 3 Republicans in Congress and 1 Democrat to potentially 4 Republicans and 0 Democrats. In a state that's about 60-40 red to blue, but obviously has elected Laura Kelly, a Democrat governor, the last 2 cycles. So, it's kind of an odd state from that perspective. But once again, the argument from Team Trump would be a simple one. Democrats have gerrymandered their states, and all we're doing is basically returning the favor. And in politics, in a zero-sum game, I'm not saying that it's the greatest thing in the world. I'm glad I won't have to do any more naked laps, though, if Sharice Davids ends up losing a race. I had to do that naked lap. That was 22. Yeah, that wasn't 24. That was 22 against Amanda Atkins. Mark is still scarred. He's still going to therapy. He had to videotape my naked lap around Corporate Woods.
That was rough.
You'll never get rid of those images in your mind, will you? You'll make it. You'll be okay. What was worse, filming my naked lap or having to watch Jimmy Kimmel 2 nights ago?
Oh, that's close. Close. I won't give an answer.
I think John would say Kimmel, but that's just my hunch.
I'll take Kimmel every day, sir.
So this looks like it could be happening here in the next few weeks. I would say November is the time when we're going to be looking at this potentially going down in Topeka. And now you've got Governor Kelly. Obviously she's throwing a fit about this thing. Kelly claimed that any effort to institute mid-decade redistricting should offer Kansans, especially those in Johnson County, a chance to either comment online or in person. Laura Kelly, the governor, is now calling on legislative leadership to host town halls prior to circulating a petition for a special session. She says here, Kansans must be offered the opportunity to express their opinions directly to their representatives as they have during previous redistricting processes. I don't know if you're going to get it. In fact, I don't think you are. In this red-hot political climate, you're telling me that these people are going to go out there in let's be honest, what's going to be an angry group of constituents and subject themselves to that. I mean, listen, I'm all about representatives getting in front of their constituents, Republicans, Democrats. I don't care how your district bends. I do think that that is an important thing to do. But in this climate, do I believe they're going to do it right now? No, I don't. And here's what Sharice Davids had to say about this yesterday. Let's roll it.
I mean, I'm angry about it. The only way to accomplish what Donald Trump is telling the Kansas Republican legislators to do is by breaking up Johnson County. And that is such a bad idea. It's such a bad idea on so many levels.
Of course, what Sharice Davids needs to do is actually explain why it's a bad idea. And the problem for Sharice Davids is explaining things like that, not her forte, John.
I was interested. I knew she was motivated. That's as many words as I've heard consecutively from her in a long time. But then we got to, it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
On so many levels.
Okay.
Don't get me started.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. You know, I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Help me out with a little more substance, if you would.
Don't
please.
give me a reason to expand on this.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't have time. I'm just going to turn the mic off right now.
Oh, my goodness. Yes, that is Sharice Davids. But here's the problem. You know, if she's going to make the case, she's got to go out there and do it succinctly and do it smartly and expand on why it's a bad idea. And maybe she'll get some sympathy. Now, I will say this. This could backfire on the state legislature, and I'll explain this. What I mean by that is there still are a lot of Republicans who hold state House seats and state Senate seats in Johnson County, Kansas, which has become a blue county. They're able to do it, whether you like it or not, they're able to do it by somewhat distancing themselves from President Trump. Because we know in certain pockets of Johnson County, obviously the president is not well supported, which, whatever, that's the lay of the land. But this will more directly tie all of these Republicans in Johnson County to President Trump and could cost Republicans some seats in the House and the Senate. I'm not saying you don't do it. It's just something to think about. If you're thinking a couple of steps ahead on what this could mean for party power in Topeka, this is one of those things you want to give some thought to if you are Republican leadership right now and you consider this redistricting plan, which I think is still going to be a full steam ahead process. Coming up, when should somebody take off from work? Is a Charlie Kirk memorial service appropriate? We'll get to it next. So let me ask you, when is it appropriate to take off for a funeral? I was so disappointed, and I heard the audio yesterday. I know it happened 2 nights ago, and Keatsman alluded to it at the end of his show, but now I've listened to the audio. And I'm so disappointed to hear this the other night. So Mets are taking on the Chicago Cubs. And the Mets broadcasters were, listen, they'll do the whole, I'm not trying to get political thing, but let me knock a guy for taking off a game on Sunday to go to Charlie Kirk's memorial service. That is what Cubs player Matt Shaw did. And the Mets broadcast crew said this about it because the Mets were in town to take on the Cubs this past week.
In a row, Matt Shaw leads off for the Cubs. He had a base hit his first time up. Shaw had Cubs World in a tizzy this weekend when he was not here for the Cubs game with the Reds. Game they lost 1-0, and in which his lack of presence was felt. It was later revealed that he had been given permission to attend Charlie Kirk's funeral. And I don't want to talk about any of the politics of it, but the thought of leaving your team in the middle of a race for any reason other than a family emergency really strikes me as weird.
It's unusual. I think it's unprecedented, at least from my experience as a player.
Now, as someone who grew up listening to that guy, Gary Cohen, I'm so disappointed in him. The way they frame this is, you know, this guy just went to Charlie Kirk's memorial service and he missed out on a Cubs game in the middle of a pennant race. What's wrong with this guy?
How dare you?
So are you allowed to take off from work when a friend dies? Because that's what happened here. Cubs third baseman Matt Shaw didn't take off because, well, he just liked Charlie Kirk's videos on YouTube and felt he had to be there in Phoenix for the big event on Sunday. No, these guys were friends. Okay, so this was not about like a fanboy situation. In fact, Charlie Kirk was on the field, was on Wrigley Field this summer. And there's video of him with Matt Shaw and Charlie signing baseballs and taking selfies and the whole thing because of their friendship. So this was not just take off because your favorite commentator got killed, which even that, I mean, if someone means something to you, what are you, not allowed to take off from work to go to a funeral? To go to a memorial service like that? So Matt Shaw, who was friends with Charlie Kirk, explained this yesterday when he said that my connection with Charlie was through our Christian faith. He says, and that's something that drives me every day, and it's the reason why I'm able to do what I do every day, and that's something I'm extremely thankful for. He says, I know without my faith and without the many blessings I've been given in my life, I would not be here, be able to talk to you guys, able to help this team eventually go on and win championships. He adds, that's something I feel really, really blessed about, so whatever backlash comes is okay. I feel strong about my faith, and that is what I was meant to be doing on Sunday. That is from Matt Shaw, Chicago Cubs third baseman. And I say good for you. You don't have to answer to anybody when it comes to going to the memorial service of a friend. And not that I'm going to sit here and cherry pick who takes off for what, but it has come to the surface here in the wake of these critical comments by the Mets broadcasting crew that the play-by-play guy, Gary Cohen, took off when his dog died. All right? So you can't take off when your dog dies and then be upset when somebody else takes off, or not upset, but somewhat insinuate that someone else should not take off when their friend passes away. Not only passes away, gets assassinated, and is about to have one of the biggest celebrations of life that we've ever seen, John.
It's interesting that I guess it's human nature when you'll say, so-and-so isn't here today. And immediately the question is why in your mind, right? Whether it's appropriate or not, or maybe some time should pass before you seek out further information. I don't know why the broadcasters needed to know why the player wasn't there that day. He's just not there, right?
Yeah, but even if they do know why, who cares? That's my point.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
it's not even a point of conversation to bring up, right?
I see that. I'm just like, you know what? Even if they know, I mean, I'm fine being transparent as to why someone might be off. And it's like, hey, his friend got killed. He's taken off. Right. Sorry you don't like it. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, that's not a big deal to me. Yeah. And it shouldn't be a big deal to anybody. But there's like, you will never be anything more than the Major League Baseball player that you are. So you must be in that lineup. There's 162 games, guys, okay? I mean, it's going to be all right. You have to be a human being first.
Mm-hmm. You get time off in the major league, surely.
Yeah, I mean, half these guys now, you know? You think about it. It's not like the old days when they were playing $1.62 a year. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
913-408-7957 is our text line and our studio line on KCMO. Pete, if this were the other way around, you'd be ripping him. You're making that up. You are totally making that up. You cannot possibly justify that text on the text line right now. You want to think that, you want to believe that in your own mind, but trust me, if God forbid something were to happen to some prominent commentator on the left side of the aisle and an athlete missed a game for it, I wouldn't even bat an eye. Okay, they were friends. Go be at the funeral. This is not a left-right thing. This is just a common-sense human decency thing. And you know what I think's really going on there on the text line? That person is projecting. That's what's going on. Because they're not happy that this guy took off and went to Charlie Kirk's memorial service. I think that is what it's really all about. 913-408-7957. I'm totally with you, Pete. Great Friday Eve show. Hey, it's Friday Eve. I forgot about that. I love it, though.
Isn't that the same commentator that got on the guy for leaving for paternity leave?
Was that Gary Cohen?
I think it was.
Oh, gosh.
I need to look that up.
Gary, stop. See if that's the case, Mark. I seem to recall something like that, but man, I'm going to be really disappointed if that's the case. Eli's in Kansas City. What's up, Eli? You're on KCMO.
Hey, Pete, I don't know if you remember, but during the whole BLM movement, we had whole teams boycotting regularly scheduled games in support of racial injustice.
You know, I'm trying to think back to that point in time. I try to forget it, to be totally honest, Eli. But I do seem to recall that there were things like that going on.
Yeah, you had players boycotting games, walking off courts, primarily in basketball, but still, I mean, same thing, right? Professional athletes leaving a game for something I guess they believe in, despite how maybe ill-advised they were. But nobody was criticizing them from what I remember.
Yeah, and here's the thing about this, right? There's nothing about this, Eli, that's even political. It's not political. It's a friend died, I'm going to the service. That's it. The fact that the friend was involved in the world of politics is really irrelevant to the whole conversation, right?
Oh, 100%. But your example here, the announcer tried to, despite his disclaimer, make it political. And, I mean, when we've done this in our nation for political reasons, we seem fine with it. And so I agree. The idea that we would chastise someone for taking time off for a friend seems ridiculous, given the history of sports and all of the ridiculous things, the truly ridiculous things that athletes and teams have taken time off for or have paid attention to. Seems like we would have a lot of grace for a guy who's just mourning the loss of a friend.
You would think so. Well said, Eli. Thanks for checking in, my man. I appreciate you. All right, Mark, you looked it up. Just to be clear, this broadcaster for the Mets, Gary Cohen, was not the guy who criticized a player for taking paternity leave, right?
No, it was a Mets player, but it was Mike Francesa.
So he was a longtime radio host.
Yeah.
I used to do some sports updates on his show. He was the godfather of sports radio there and is a legend in that market.
A New York guy.
Yes. I think he's still doing a podcast these days. But, yeah, okay. So different guy, but same idea.
Yeah.
You know, your kid's born, friend dies, never mind someone like Charlie Kirk. Guess what? Go be a dad. Go be a friend. Erica Kirk wanted him to be there. Enough. Okay? Baseball's a sport. That's it. If there's anything we've learned after the last couple of weeks, there are many more important things in all of our lives than what we are driving to work to do right now. Not that we shouldn't care, not that we shouldn't have passion, not that we shouldn't want to be the best of the best at what we do. I certainly do. I know many of you feel that same way as you get up and go to the office this morning. But when it comes to family and faith, in the case of Matt Shaw and Charlie Kirk, that's exactly what this was all about. So as yesterday's tragedy in Dallas was unfolding, let's be honest, we find out that ICE agents are fired at in Dallas, Texas from a rooftop. We then learn that the people who were shot were detainees. And immediately you're thinking to yourself, as I am, what's the motivation here? Is it someone who was indiscriminately firing at ICE and ends up hitting detainees? Is it somebody who is firing specifically to hit detainees as some kind of anti-illegal immigrant message? Like, what's going on here? What's the motivation? Well, we quickly learned as the press conference happened at about 10:30 yesterday morning and as the day unfolded that this was somebody who was motivated by anti-ICE propaganda. And we've seen, sadly, a lot of this over the last few months, right? Since the duly elected president of the United States, in conjunction with a duly elected Congress, has taken the approach of, hey, the last guy in charge allowed way too many people into the country illegally. We need to figure out who's who, what's what. We have to remove especially those who are violent offenders and in the country illegally. We have to do something about that. That involves using ICE agents. That has sent a lot of people off the deep end. You've seen fake stories around this issue. You've seen incredibly hyperbolic rhetoric around the issue. And it has led to multiple attacks over the last several months against ICE agents and ICE facilities. This most recent one being the worst of the worst, where you have someone who lost their life, you have two other detainees who were shot, and the gunman took his own life as well. So we know what the motivation is now. We're very clear on the motivation now. We've seen, sadly, more and more examples of people motivated by extreme left-wing rhetoric take this approach on some of the most heinous acts of violence we've seen in years in just the last few weeks. We have what happened in Minneapolis against a bunch of Catholic school kids. We have the Charlie Kirk assassination. We now have this in Dallas. And the ideology is consistent across the board. That doesn't mean there isn't crazy all over the place. There is crazy all over the place. But right now, in the last 30 days in this country, the most heinous acts of violence have been tied to one extreme portion of one major political party. That is indisputable. So what's the spin yesterday? Well, take a listen to some of what you heard on MSNBC, where right away you had a guest on there questioning the motivation.
You can't just assume by that what was written on that shell casing that's necessarily his motivation. He could have been doing that to thinking it was funny, trying to put law enforcement on the wrong track. This is where when you analyze the person's phone, computer, talk to his family and friends, that you get an idea of what his motivation perhaps really was.
Okay, so right away, you have a guy who shoots up an ICE facility, and he has anti-ICE written on the shell casings. And the immediate reaction from an MSNBC guest is, well, he might be trying to throw him off the trail there a little bit. That's your gut reaction? You're trying to will this thing across the finish line to fit your narrative. I mean, it's just gross. Just analyze the facts. These are the facts. This is what we know. Now, if something comes out in some social media profile, or you find some emails or some dark web connection between this guy and something else out there, then you know what? Okay, let's have that conversation. Let's follow the facts. That's not what this is. This is an analyst on a prominent cable news channel going out there and playing footsie with the idea that what appears to have clearly motivated this individual is not what actually motivated this individual. Because he's trying to trick your eyes. Yeah. He's trying to trick all of us, John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do not believe your lying eyes.
Exactly. And then you had this guy who used to work for the FBI, Chris O'Leary, MSNBC as well. I mean, they were really on fire yesterday. Even by their own standards.
Speak, yeah. I don't know what's above platinum level, diamond level.
TDS?
Yeah.
You might be right. This was Chris O'Leary, used to work for the FBI because, of course, on MSNBC. And he sets up this whole thing by saying the fact that this guy was writing on the shell casings, it's actually a trick, he claims, out of the right-wing playbook. I'm not kidding. No, I'm being serious.
First or second edition. Right, come on, playbook.
Yeah. No, take a listen, man. This is real.
The irony with the writing, the first time we really saw that was Brenton Tarrant in the Christchurch shooting in a mosque in New Zealand, and he was a fierce, white supremacist and neo-Nazi, and wrote all over his weapon and his rounds, very hateful information. So to see this coming from, potentially the other side of the political spectrum is a little strange, because it is not something, if you are trying to, carry out some kind of message countering, more extreme right-wing stuff, I don't know why you would use a tactic that a famous white supremacist who has been revered and copycatted over the years by other white supremacists, why you would do that. But it does appear that people are moving in that direction because they want people to know what they're doing and why they're doing it.
They just can't help themselves. They somehow take this story from yesterday, clearly somebody motivated by anti-ICE sentiments, which has been far too common in this country over the last several months, as these ICE agents literally do what they are constitutionally obligated to do, okay? And what they are being asked to do by a duly elected president of the United States and his DOJ. They somehow spin this into some guy that, frankly, I forgot the name of.
Yeah.
Some guy in Australia.
New Zealand. Even.
Yeah, yes.
Smaller.
An Australian.
Smaller.
Well, he was an Australian white supremacist, and his crime was committed in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So a guy that, frankly, most of us couldn't pick out of a lineup is, in a roundabout way, the motivation for why you saw this person yesterday in Dallas have anti-ice on his shell casings. And also why what? The guy that killed Charlie Kirk wrote on his shell casings, "Hey, fascist, catch." They're all motivated by some dude in Australia. I mean, if we find that out, so be it. I will be open to that conversation. But this is a former FBI official on MSNBC yesterday, meandering his way, which, by the way, he could have said what he said in about 20 seconds. It took him 65 seconds. It's like, dude, that is not the road to be going down right now. The common theme here, sadly, is that you are seeing this violence being committed by extremists who have a common political ideology. And it has nothing to do, as of this conversation right now, with any kind of white supremacy. It has nothing to do with any kind of conservative leanings. In fact, it's the opposite. And that is where an honest conversation needs to be had right now. I am not saying that there aren't people that feel the way I do or have voted the way I have who aren't nuts and also may do some bad things at one point. But you look at the most prominent things that have happened in this country over the last 30 days, from Minneapolis to Charlie Kirk in Utah to now this in Dallas, and the common theme is radical political ideology on the left side of the political aisle. And for MSNBC to irresponsibly go down this road of, well, you know, we just don't know the motivation, might be trying to throw people off track. And boy, this guy in Australia at one point, they're just following his lead. Stop lying. Now, you're allowed to lie. Once again, this is the conversation we had about Jimmy Kimmel. There's no FCC license there, and it's basically a free-for-all. So do what you're going to do. But guess what? We're going to do what we do, and we're going to call out the lies. That's what we're going to do. 913-408-7957.
I'm with you. I'm not so much opposed to disagreeing with people or them having a different opinion or even lying, to your point. It's just that don't insult my intelligence. Don't expect me to believe it. Don't expect me to participate in your delusion.
And that's what they're trying to do, at least with their little bubble of shrinking audience that is like 65 plus with blue hair. You know, Bill O'Reilly tapped into something I thought about the last couple of weeks. I read a story in the Wall Street Journal about Disney and how expensive Disney World has gotten, and it's priced out most Americans. And, you know, I'm torn about it because it's America. Capitalism is real. You can charge what you think the marketplace is willing to pay, and you have every right to increase your prices up to a point and decrease them down to a point based on basically what your customers are willing to shell out, right? But then I think what Disney World was intended to be, this place that, you know, many American kids want to go at least once in their lives and just experience, and the prices are totally out of control. But what Bill was alluding to there is the way that the company acts very progressive and very woke, but then they love capitalism when it suits their needs. And that's the hypocrisy of many in Disney's shoes. They're all about wokeness. They're all about being progressive. Jimmy Kimmel, The View, a lot of the ways they run their operation. But when it comes to Disney World, sure, $200 a ticket for an adult. Yeah, come on in. I saw this, too, in this Wall Street Journal article. Skip the line feature Fast Pass used to be free 5 years ago. Now they have different tiers of what they call lightning lane passes per privilege. The most expensive reaching $449 a person per day, John.
Privilege. Dealing with privilege there, huh?
Exactly. It's just ridiculous. But, you know, it's nice, I guess. You can pick when you want to be progressive and you can pick when you want to be woke. And then when it comes to charging people to come to Disney World, $400 for a lightning lane pass, yeah, shell it out. That's capitalism, baby.
Welcome to situational ethics, where our companies compete with each other.
Oh, man. Lead story this morning at the Kansas City Star is this. As Kansas City mayor eyes Congress, would he and Democrats have a shot? They write here, after Missouri Republicans thrust Kansas City into the national spotlight by gerrymandering the state's congressional map, the city's mayor immediately warned that the move could backfire. Quinton Lucas and others have argued the new congressional map could be competitive, possibly opening a path for Democrats to pick up additional seats in Congress. Lucas has gone a step further and flirted with a potential run himself. Oh, he's flirting, all right. He's flirting hard, man. He's trying. He's getting in there. He's not just flirting. He's taking it one step further.
Prom night comes to mind.
The map approved by lawmakers carves Kansas City voters into 3 Republican-leaning districts under pressure from the Trump administration. Republicans hope to pick up Democrat U.S. Representative Emmanuel Cleaver's 5th congressional district.
You mustard moo.
And ensure GOP control over 7 of the state's 8 districts. So then they talk to their experts, and their experts admit that Democrats likely face an uphill battle under the new map in 2026. They write here, the best shot at halting the gerrymander is fighting the map in court and at the ballot box. But that doesn't mean, don't kid yourself, that does not mean that Quinton Lucas may not run. In fact, I would say, this is just my bet. I'm not going to bet anything on it. I've made that mistake one too many times. But my hunch is that he will decide to run. You know why? It will get him national attention. He can turn himself into a martyr of sorts. Dare I say a beta boy, Beto O'Rourke, or a Stacey Abrams in Georgia, where you're kind of like, you know, taking one for the team, and I'm out here, I'm just trying to stop the gerrymander and, you know, help my party and be a good guy. And, you know, he'll get some hits on CNN and MSNBC, get to rag on the Missouri GOP, and he's just fighting for his constituents and for his city and for his party. It's not a bad move. For him. It's not a bad idea for his own political future. But it's not going to be because he sees a pathway to win. Especially now with the extensive track record that he's got, where if he's going to run against Mark Alford, listen, I would love it. You know how good that'd be for us? Get those 2 guys in here in studio in a debate? Oh, man, that'd be great. Oh, man, that'd be awesome.
Well, I think the Kansas news is interesting for his future, too.
Yeah, if he wanted to move to Kansas and maybe take over for Sharice Davids, they may end up gerrymandering there as well. Mm-hmm. I think they'll do it here in the next couple of months. You know, that was a lot more honest of a conversation with Quinton Lucas than I thought it was going to be. Sometimes he surprises me, you know? I mean, he was admitting that I couldn't believe. If I knew it was this easy to get a day named after you in Kansas City, I would have applied years ago. I mean, NBA Youngboy gets September 21st, the day he has this sold-out concert at T-Mobile, and apparently the mayor's admitting, yeah, I don't really know who handles that, but I would have applied years ago for a Pete Mundo day, John.
Now, for me, I've still got some issues pending. I've got statute of limitations on an incident down on the plaza back in '85. My stepbrother. So, I'm optimistic with the new owners down there that they may clear my name. But.
Oh, that's great.
December 1st, KCMO, betting becomes legal in Missouri.
Oh.
Mark Van Sickle Day.
Parlay Van Sickle Day.
Van Sickle Day.
All right. Well, John, you pick your day, buddy. All right. Find a day for yourself. You got some time to think about it.
I may have to wait a year. So.
Oh, man. But listen, he was talking my language on that one, just saying, hey, guys shouldn't have a day in Kansas City, and we got to get these teenage criminals off the streets. And he agreed with President Trump on that. So you know what? If Missouri needs to pass state law on that to help clean up these cities, let's do it, man. Let's get it done. Jim's in Kansas City. Hey, Jim.
Hey, I'd like to sound off about the blue light thing. I do not support it. It's because you're going to discourage proactive enforcement. If you're a drug dealer, you're running drugs, you're running guns, whatever, you see the blue light, you're just going to turn away from a mile away. You can't have proactive enforcement if you're advertising where you're at from super far away. Because that's how you catch bad guys.
Listen, I get the argument, and I'm not in law enforcement, so I'd like to hear from people on both sides on this. My thought is we all say we want to see more patrol around neighborhoods in Kansas City. I think everybody would agree on patrol being an important part of the job, and just having a presence is an important part of the job. So I don't mind it, because to me it signals, hey, we've got people around who are trying to keep this neighborhood in particular safe, and people are paying attention. So I don't mind it inherently. I don't have a major problem with it.
Well, I'm just telling you, if you do it in like power and light, high visibility areas, I get that. But if you're trying to stop guys that are dealing drugs, he drives by you, he looks at the cop car and says, "Oh crap," and then that's when you find a traffic violation. You pull him over. But if he sees you from a mile away, he's going to turn and run his dope another way.
Yeah, but okay. I get it, Jim. Thank you. I mean, here's my thought on that. The other side would be, if you're doing an investigation into drug dealers or a drug deal, right? And you know who you're looking for, and you're trying to bust a guy undercover, whatever it might be. Well, yeah, you're not going to have another patrol guy driving around with his blue lights in that situation, right? Like that's to me different than what we're talking about here. Chris in Kansas City, go ahead, Chris. You're on KCMO.
If you're going to do it, good morning, first off, apologize. If you're going to do it, then every police car should have it. The commanders all the way down. And the fact that they're just putting it in patrol, it's really just a waste of time. You're looking at maybe 100 cars a day running around with a blue light. So if you really want people to see police cars, it should be in every commander car. It should be in every police car that is both marked and unmarked. And I'm not talking about undercover cars or anything like that. I'm talking about legitimate police cars that you can pull up to a stop sign and look to your left, and there's a commander sitting in their car. And they should do it across the board, not just in patrol. That way you truly, truly do have, oh, look, there's a police officer. There's a police officer. But they're not doing that. This is just another move where they're pandering to the public to make it look like there's more police out there than there really are. That's just my opinion.
All right. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you, man. We will talk more about this in the days ahead on KCMO. We do have some breaking news. A Blue Springs school bus has gotten into an accident, ran into a building. I'm just seeing this right now.
It's 40 Highway and 7 Highway in Blue Springs.
Thank you for that. Kids were on the bus when it happened, and it looks like it's crashed into a Comfort Dental.
Comfort Dental.
So as we get more on this in the 8 o'clock hour, we'll bring it to you here on KCMO Talk Radio.